Okay, we're going to start out with preparing a wood for cabinetry work. When you're doing construction, the lumber that you get from the lumber yard is just fine. There might be a little bit of warpage, but no real problem there. But when you want to do fine cabinet work, you have to start out with wood that is flat, square, parallel in all 6 sides. So generally when you're doing cabinet work, you're going to be buying hardwoods, which comes at a specified thickness that's specified in quarters. It's a little over the thickness that you want. That allows you to machine it down to exactly the dimensions you want. But with any quality project, you got to have quality wood to start with. So to start out with, you want a board that is flat on the first face. And I have a board here that has just a little bit of a warp in it. It's not too bad. It's got a hollow on one side and a bow or a proud on the other side, just a little bit of a bow. And a little bit is not too much of a problem. If you have a board that's got a lot of warp or twist to it, the first option would be to use it for firewood. That's your best option. But in a worst case scenario, if you have to use it, if it's warped too much, you don't want to try to start out with the power machine like this. You take a hand plane and you are going to actually plane down the high spots and try to get it relatively straight to start with a hand plane before you try to machine it flat. So the next thing I want to look at again is the board. I've got a little bit of a hollow this way and a little bit of a bow this way. If I run the board through the planer like this, it's going to rock up and down like this. It's going to be hard to get it flat. But if I run it with the hollow on this side, now I have 2 points in contact, so it's going to be a lot more stable as it goes through the machine. So the machine we use is this machine. It's called a jointer, J-O-I-N-T-E-R, and it has a cutter right here in the bottom. The idea is you guide the workpiece over this surface here, which is slightly below the cutters on this. You can adjust it so you can cut however thick of a cut you want to take. Just keep in mind, the thicker the cut, the harder it is to control the board. Another way to look at this, which would you rather push, a bicycle or a semi? So rather than taking one heavy cut, take several lighter cuts. It's just a lot easier to control, a lot safer, and you end up with a better finish in the long run. So I am going to guide my workpiece through here. This table is set just a little bit lower than the cutters here. It should be about 2/1000ths of an inch or about the thickness of a hair. That allows the board to glide over top of this and cut straight. If this outfeed table is set higher than the blades, it's going to run into the end of the table, it's going to pick it up, and you're actually going to put a bow in it rather than taking a bow out. So my general rule of thumb is I never move the outfeed table. I adjust the blades or the cutters in relationship to this, and I never move it. I can move this table to adjust the thickness of the cut. Again, the thinner the better. And this is just a guard to keep you from getting your fingers into the cutter as it's turning. Next thing we want to think about is how we hold the board when we're running it through the planer. If I use just my hands, I have my fingers in close proximity to those cutters, run the chance of cutting my fingers off. So it's good to have push blocks to hold the board down, and it keeps your hands out of the cutters as it's going through. So this is a standard push blocks that we use. Another thing is this push stick Again, it's going to keep your hands above the workpiece. It's got a hook on it that's going to help you push that board through, whereas these push blocks will tend to slip a little bit and a little harder to control, but it's up to you whichever one you prefer to use. So I'm going to lay this aside for right now, and I am going to take the first cut on this, and I look down the board and I can see that it is high on this side, low on this side, so I want this board to lay flat. So I am going to take a cut on this face to start with. And with that, now I have one straight, flat face. So that's my starting point. This is the first face. Now, if you noticed, I push this board through slowly. I'm going to push it through real rapidly like a lot of people do. They get in a big hurry, want to get the job done real fast. I'm going to take a cut like that just to show you what it does. You see, I had more trouble controlling the workpiece as it went through, and it's hard to see on the camera here, but I've got a little ripple effect on this face. So I've got little tiny ripples all the way through this board. It's not completely smooth. It is straight and it is flat, but it's not real smooth. That doesn't give you a very good glue surface if you're going to glue two boards together. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to take one more cut, slow, get rid of those ripples. It was much easier to guide it through the machine, and now I have a nice smooth surface. It looks wonderful. So that is the first face. There's actually 6 faces on every board. First face, second face, third face, fourth face, fifth, and on the other end is the 6th face. Well, I've got one face flat. Next thing I want to do is make the second face perpendicular to this face, flat and smooth. By doing that, I hold it up against the fence, this fence here, and that is going to hold it square and perpendicular with everything. And I just take a couple cuts until I got that all cleaned up. And with that, the second face is flat, parallel, smooth to the first face. What you probably didn't notice is when I am pushing this through, I'm actually putting a little pressure on my fingertips here to hold it up against the fence. If I just hold it out here, the board's going to wobble and it will get flat, but not necessarily perpendicular. So this just locates it as you push it through. So that is what this machine does. The first two faces on the board, now we're ready to move to the thickness planer, which will do the third face.